Hello and welcome to the Trash Talk Podcast. I'm Gentleman Dev Sergej. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm doing fine myself. And today we're talking about time travel tenets, or well, the laws of time travel, the rules that time travel tales employ to, do the time travel.
Do their thing. Yeah.
I'm not sure if I'm going to use the word tenet in the title, but we did find alliteration. Yes, that is the kind of thing we do before starting the podcast. We come up with alliterations, okay?
It's fun, you know?
Yes.
But yeah. Do you have any specific things in mind?
Yeah, I guess the first thing to talk about would I guess be the broad strokes, right? Like, there are different rules for time travel, just like the whole, like, there is one single timeline, and all time travel that will happen has already happened, so you can't change the timeline. There is sort of the more, like, any small change you make will like catastrophically alter the timeline. There's a lot of sort of in-between ones, where you can make changes, but oftentimes it's very difficult to change the broad strokes of history, and most of the time, if you're just, like, visiting the past, nothing you do really changes anything unless you're, like, deliberately trying to make big changes.
Yeah.
And I guess the first question then is, like, A, is there other types that you can think of, and B, like, what are the, like, pros and cons, which ones we like best in stories? Are there reasons why you would choose one or the other when telling a story? That's sort of the idea.
I don't think I can think of any other types right offhand. So,
I mean, I guess it's
Tenets
the
being
multiverse version, where every
in
time
a
you time
title.
travel, the timeline splits.
Isn't that the same as the, like, stuff changing wildly, or even at all, every time you...
Sort of. I mean,
change
if you
anything?
have dimensional travel in there as well, then that matters, right? If you can travel to the, like, altered and unaltered timelines, whereas
Oh,
if
yeah.
it just changes, like, the unaltered timeline no longer exists. I guess in a setting where you don't have, like, travel between timelines, it doesn't really matter if the old timeline still exists in some form. In some form, it's just a philosophical question at that point. But if it remains accessible in some way, then that does matter.
Right. Huh.
Yeah, that's like a comic book thing that happens where it's like, oh yeah, you went back in time to change the thing, but actually all you did is create a new reality where that thing is different, but your own reality is still the same as it always was.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of makes sense to me. That is, like, one of the more realistic ways I think that time travel could work.
Yeah, it also does away with the paradoxes, because if you kill your grandfather, then you create a reality where you don't exist. But you, from the original timeline, still travel back to kill your grandfather and cause that fork. So at least that, like, most famous time travel paradox is just fixed.
Exactly, yes. Then the other one that I quite enjoy is the one that's like everything is fixed. There's, like, just one timeline. All the time travel already happened.
Yeah.
Because there's also no grandfather paradox. You just cannot kill him.
Yeah.
Like, metaphysically.
The problem that happens with those is usually that a story will do that. They'll be like, oh yeah, we're doing the Unchanged Timeline. And first of all, if you know that already, it's boring as hell, right? Because, like, oh, you can't change a thing. Like why am I even watching this? So the only way this usually works is as an end reveal. Which then also precludes sequels, because again, it's kind of boring to watch people time travel when you already know. I mean, I'm sure you could tell a story where why they can't actually succeed, like how time is hindering them from making changes, like, could become an interesting bit. But generally speaking, it's not actually that conducive to telling a story, again, unless that is, like, the end reveal where it's like, oh, actually, this always happened. Right? That's basically the Terminator 1, right? Terminator travels back in time, tries to kill John Connor, or actually tries to kill Sarah Connor, who is John Connor's mother. This then essentially leads to her training her son to become the resistance leader that they were trying to stop, and also the Terminator going back actually is a bootstrap paradox because they used the chip from the Terminator to actually create this kind of system in the first place.
Oh, I didn't know that part. That's kind of cool.
And then Terminator 2,
but yeah, I was more
obviously,
thinking...
they can change things, because otherwise, what's the point of making a sequel?
Oh, that's true. So, the other movie I was thinking of that has a fixed timeline is Tenet, the one that we kind of alluded to with the title. And I think it kind of managed to tell the story. It was, like, if you paid attention, it was kind of obvious from the very beginning how the time travel works.
Yes,
and that
I
it's a
believe
single timeline.
they also fairly early on in the movie mentioned that you can't change things. And yet, they still try. Although, I guess this is also one of those things that time travel stories sometimes do, where it's the changing the timeline without changing things. Where, like, superficially, it seems like the past you know to have existed has happened, but actually, you made a change such that it actually happens differently. Like, oh, someone died in the past. Well, actually, you just faked their death and put them in hiding until the present day when you can let them out again, so that nothing has changed in the timeline. Now, whether or not that is still a timeline where time travel doesn't work, or doesn't change anything, because it just, like, you just thought they were dead, they never were actually dead, or you change the timeline and it just isn't obvious. You can do that both ways. I think that's sometimes done to, like, avoid paradoxes, where it's like, well, obviously, if I change the past, then I would never have to go back to change the past, and so I pretend like I didn't change it, but actually, we can now make use of the fact that it did change things.
Yeah. That's true.
So I guess that's... Huh. But yeah, no...
right now, actually, maybe I do know in a different example of this. Like, are you familiar with the anime Steins Gate?
Yes.
Because there, at least in the first half of it, they don't travel back in time themselves. They send messages or SMS back in time to alter the timeline.
Yeah.
So they're basically jumping to a different timeline without really knowing the destination.
Yeah. Oh god, it's been
so long kind of...
since I've seen Steins Gate, but yeah.
Would that kind of count as time travel? Because I guess it does, right? I mean, yes, they do change things in the past.
Sending information in the past, I think it would count as time travel, yeah.
But like the main character still stays in the present. But like suddenly he finds himself in a different timeline and has to adapt.
Oh yeah, that's actually also another interesting distinction we can make with time travel rules, where like remembering the previous timeline versus not remembering. I think the most common version is that the time traveler remembers the old timeline, but no one else does. But there have been versions as well where the time traveler themselves doesn't remember the old timeline. Sometimes there's also like the new timeline asserts itself thing, where like you start losing the memories of your old timeline and the ones of the new timeline start popping in. Like there's a lot of variance in that as well.
Oh yeah, that yes, that I've seen. I
don't think I've seen. I can't recall seeing one where the time traveler immediately loses the memory of the past. I don't of the original past. I don't recall that happening, but then again,
don't recall any of that.
I also can't. And that's also how human brain works. So like it's hard to like know for sure that I haven't seen it.
Yeah. I wonder, though, like, how would that work? Like, the time traveler themselves losing memory. I guess it depends on the method that they use to time travel. Like, in the case of Steins Gate, I would, like, totally see how that would happen, because, like, well, it is just a different timeline.
Yeah, it is actually kind of weird if you...
main character didn't actually travel.
Remember the original timeline.
Just, like... Yeah. But like if it's just like a machine that you go into and like travel to a different time, you're still like the same person, still the same atoms and stuff.
Well, yes, but if you can change
One continuous strand of.
if you can change the past, then everything leading up to you time traveling would have also changed. So you should also change accordingly. There's also the fun thing where sometimes you can do the thing where you shoot an earlier version of the time traveler and the later version suddenly has the wound for it or something. Like that sometimes happens.
Oh wait, I think I understand what you mean. Basically, single timeline, but it being alterable.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay, yeah, no, then I do understand. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the only version in which that is a reasonable question. If it splits the timeline, then you're still the original version, and why would your memories change? If it's an unalterable timeline, then you're not altering timeline, so there wouldn't be different memories anyways.
Exactly. No, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah, I guess I should have specified. It's actually kind of weird how many stories go from single timeline to you can change your timeline, or from single unchangeable timeline to single changeable timeline, or something like that, as they go on. But it's actually interesting. The 12 Monkeys TV show is a bit weird there, where they start off saying it's a single unchangeable timeline, but also there's one episode where he does change the timeline, but he immediately changes it back, which doesn't make sense. Like, that couldn't have always been part of the timeline because it's literally a different timeline. And then also, it does at one point, I think it's still fairly early on, does the thing where, like, he gets shot. Like, a version of him from, like, a day ago gets shot in the arm or something, and he's like, God damn it, you hit me! Like, his arms are bleeding.
Okay, yeah, no, that's kind of
and then later they
not lining up.
They do alter the timeline, and there's a whole reason of why, like, there's a lot more time travel going on there, and it's convoluted, and you can't change things, but not all things, sometimes not everything, and also because there are time travelers that are working against them, it's the reason of why certain things can't be changed, because they would just help. It's a whole thing, okay?
Right, yeah.
It's weird because 12 Monkeys actually, like, unironically does make a lot of sense. If you don't take the rules too seriously, and as far as, like, why can sometimes things be changed, sometimes they can't be, and something that's like, well, you just kind of have to go with it.
I mean, would have. I haven't seen it, but I assume like that if they did follow the rules for that, it would have been a lot better. Or is it really just such a minor plot point?
I mean,
that it doesn't matter.
I'm not sure if they ever, like, very explicitly, like, in sort of an undisputable way nail down the rules, because again, at first it seems like they might not be able to change the timeline, but then later they do. So it's like, I'm not even sure if they ever, like, defined the rules close enough to where you can definitively say they were broken. There's a lot of time travel that happens off screen as well by other characters that later on is revealed, and that actually does make other things that seemed maybe weird at first make sense. And it honestly kind of sometimes feels like it was actually, like, the whole thing was written out from start to finish, and they actually, like, mapped out all the time travel. I don't know if that's the case, but it does sometimes feel like that. So it does actually do it fairly well. But I guess that also comes with that show, as well as most time travel stories, also has the whole meanwhile in the past thing. They actually justify it a little bit, but where, when, like, things can happen simultaneously in different points in time, and it's like, that's not what simultaneous means. Like, by definition.
Yeah, what? No.
But a lot of time travel stories do that, right? Where, like, my favorite example of that is actually Legends of Tomorrow, where I think, I don't know if it's the show itself, if it's season 1 of the show, or if it's actually the crossover that basically builds up to the show. Anyways, the point is, they actually have to, like, they have to do something, I think they have to detonate a bomb or something, simultaneously at 3 different points in time. It's explicitly said they have to do it simultaneously at 3 different points in time. It's like, that doesn't make sense. A lot of time travel stories make more sense if you assume that there's 2 dimensions of time, one of which is essentially as you're seeing it happen on the screen, and the other one's the actual time that they travel across. But yeah, no, that was just like, what? And then they also, I think I said earlier, time takes time to set, where, like, it changes the timeline, don't happen instantly, but I mean, Back to the Future does that one as well, right? Where like he slowly gets erased. It's like, why would he get slowly erased, right? Like, huh? But yeah, so
that kind of stuff always annoyed me.
Yeah, again, a lot of times it always makes
like,
more
why?
sense if you assume there's a second time dimension that they can't travel through. That is essentially most of the time, for most purposes, the same as the timeline that you are, like, in the order in which you're watching the events happen. Like, barring the occasional flashback. It's kind of weird like that.
Still dubious.
Yeah. What were we talking about? I kind of went off the rails with... Oh, memories. I think we're talking about memories originally. Nah, I think we're past memories. See, that's the problem. The topic started to become non-linear, and it's starting to be it's starting to be a problem.
Okay, so we handled memories. We handled different modes of time travel, or like different types. I don't think we handled modes of time travel.
Oh, like how? Oh, I mean, I guess there's the most classic is probably the physical, right? Like you physically go back in time.
Yeah.
You mentioned sending messages
Like
back in
you
time.
have some machine or something. Yep.
I think that's also like a distinct form. There is mental time travel where you land in usually your own previous self's body, although Travelers, for example, the TV show, actually had them land in the bodies of people that were about to die. That's apparently for ethics reasons. They're like, oh yeah, we'll put you in the body of someone who was about to die. Ethics and also like minimize the butterfly effect. That's actually a very interesting one. It's fairly unique. They travel into the bodies of people that are about to die, have to prevent themselves from dying, and then they do their stuff, and they have some rules like, you know, like don't influence the timeline outside of your missions, basically, and also stuff like don't have kids because this person was about to die, and so
obviously,
and so they like keep their interference with the timeline to a minimum, and so I think that one is also interesting. But yeah, it's a variation on the mental time travel thing. Oftentimes, mental time travel means traveling to your own body from the past. In this case, it's someone else's.
From the future.
You travel into your own past body.
Yes, that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that was ambiguously worded. But yeah, no, I think those are the three main ones. I think is messages, physical time travel, and mental time travel. I guess you could say, technically, messages is a variation of physical time travel, just not a person. And I guess there are other variants where you can send objects, but not people. Kind of the opposite of Transformers. Not Transformers. Terminator. Why did I say Transformers? Right, but Terminator, you can only send people. You can only send organic matter.
Oh yeah. Right. That's weird.
It's probably...
I never really thought about that.
I mean, the main point there, I think, is that they can't send back a bunch of Terminators because they're non-organic, and so they had to do the skin thing. Which, I don't know why they couldn't do that, like, 1,000 times over, but I guess whatever. And it also is a reason why they can't bring back, like, future technology, I guess. At least not en masse. Yeah. Although, realistically, if putting skin on a Transformer does it, then you could have just put, like, a leather bundle or something and put your weapons in there.
Yep. There's a lot of issues with that.
Terminator, especially as a franchise, doesn't really hold up when you think about it too much. Like, a lot of the later movies just make things worse as well. I'm also not sure if they're all supposed to be in the same timeline anyways. I mean, the timeline changes, of course, which I guess means that they are in the same universe, but in different timelines of that universe that were created by those previous... The fourth one isn't even a time travel movie.
I have only seen the first two, so cannot comment.
I think I've seen...
Actually, wait, no, I might have seen the first three.
I think I've seen
Never mind that.
There's one that's literally just, like, the Resistance fighting against Skynet in the future. It's like... why is this a movie? I mean, I guess it makes sense. Like it is part of the story of, but like, yeah. I mean, I don't think it kind of taps into the whole like Kyle Reese being what's his John Connor's father. I think that does come up there, so it's not entirely devoid of the time travel element. It's just that it doesn't happen within the story itself.
Right. Yes.
Oh right, you were talking about, you said modes of time travel. Can you think of anything else?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of anything.
I mean, there's a lot of
I also
variations.
just remember that, yeah, there's, like, for example, Interstellar, where at the end, like, the main character is able to send messages back in time, or like controlling gravity a bit.
Okay, I haven't
But
seen that one,
yeah,
but I think it's a very famous example. Yeah, I mean, there's also, again, there's a lot of varieties. Like the Terminator has the only organic matter thing. There are some verses where it's like you can't survive being sent back into the past. Like it just kills you if you do that. So you can only send non-living things to the past. Those are then oftentimes the
yep,
ones that do end up using messages or something like that. I guess Tenet is kind of a special case you mentioned earlier, where it's not really the
true, yes,
traditional form of time travel, because most of the time travel means you go from one point in the present to usually a point in the past, sometimes the future.
hmm
But Tenet is time just works backwards for you.
yep, just same speed, just reversed.
But it's actually quite unique as well.
Yep,
I mean, I guess another variation, which is actually like something that we could actually do, is you're just going forward faster.
yes, that one. I mean, we kind of already do that right now. Um,
Well,
like
I'm
we're
saying like
moving
faster than
faster.
normal, right? Like
But yeah, what define normal, right?
1 second per second. I mean, I'm talking about like the whole
Well,
like
that
relativistic effects thing, right? Like getting either
yeah,
very fast or very
yeah,
close to something with a lot of gravity, and time moves slower for you than for the people around you, as in the
yeah.
universe
But like
around
the thing is, for the person near the black hole, time would still pass at a second a second,
you.
right?
Yeah. It's one of those where like it's a matter of perspective, I suppose.
hmm
Which is like the whole thing with relativity, right? Like your reference frame, like certain things are affected by reference frame, certain things aren't. Like the speed of light, which still doesn't make sense, but whatever. I mean, I'm sure it does make sense, but like, how can the person near the black hole and the person in the universe out there see the same photon travel at the same speed if they are experiencing time differently? I guess that's where bending of space comes in, because that then explains.
Yep. It's so weird. It
The
breaks my brain, but it
point
makes sense if I think hard enough about it.
the point is, I guess that is also another form of time travel, kind of, sort of, because we mostly talk about traveling to the
Kinda, sorta.
past because that is generally the most interesting. Because, like, what was it?
hmm
Anyone can travel to the future. You're doing it right now, which is basically what you were saying earlier. Um,
Exactly.
and
Um,
yes, traveling to the future faster is obviously interesting. There's also cryosleep and stuff like that, where like you could just, it's not even time travel, but experientially for you, it might as well be. Like you fall asleep and you wake up 1,000 years later. It's like, when I stepped through a portal or I was frozen, it doesn't
yeah,
really make a
true,
difference.
true.
Assuming that the freezing doesn't actually like damage your body or something, because then it does make a difference. But I guess some time portals also damage you, so that wouldn't even necessarily be distinguishing.
hmm I'm trying to remember what physics says would potentially happen if you went through a wormhole that connects to like the past. Um,
I'm not sure that physics has gone
how
that
that would
far to
actually
like
look
really
like.
modeling that in that type of detail, because essentially, as far as I understand it, the wormhole is essentially just a hole between two different points in space time,
Exactly, right?
which would also mean
So,
that we can do the simultaneously in the past thing, because from the perspective through the wormhole, those things are both the present.
Exactly, yeah. And that kind of makes my head hurt a bit. So let's not think about this right now.
Which I think is also time travel paradox are one of the arguments against why wormholes would exist that go to the past or to the future, because that's the same thing. If it goes to the future from your perspective, it goes to the past from the other side's perspective. The argument is just like, oh, time travel doesn't make sense, so it probably doesn't exist, which is not. It doesn't seem like a scientifically rigorous argument, but like, it does have some intuitive sense to it. Whereas like, wormholes don't exist, at least not through time, because otherwise, time travel paradoxes. Yeah. I guess it doesn't
what I
if we have
know about
one unchangeable timeline though, because then you could have
yes
to the past.
I was about to say that is, from what I know about physics, the most likely option that we have. Because already, if you move fast enough, or move at all in comparison to someone else, you would be seeing quite a different time at like the edge of the observable universe. It would be like maybe multiple years apart. So which one is the present?
Yeah.
And like how does that work? And the same would apply for them. If they were moving towards you, I think they would see like you in, I don't know, the future 1 year from now. So what is the present? So what it looks like is like that we are living in one block universe, it's called, but like one unchangeable fixed timeline.
Which also means the future is written and you don't have free will.
Yeah.
Which, yeah. We went over that before.
We did. We will again, hopefully, eventually.
I mean, I guess that's also always a problem, right, with like the unchangeable timeline. Like the implications are actually not amazing from like storytelling standpoint, because like even if you say like oh yeah, this means there's no free will, it's like doesn't really change the story in any practical sense. Like the fictional characters already don't have free will.
Yep.
Like someone's already writing them anyways. But I feel like people would see it differently.
I guess.
Then again,
I mean,
Greek
that's kind of the same thing with regular, right? Like, it doesn't really matter if you do or don't have free will, right? You're still doing the things.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's a whole other can of worms. Do you have something else to say about the tenets of time travel tales?
I don't think so.
Some stories have a special effect, sometimes it's called a paradox, where the same object from different points in time interacting with its, like coming into contact with itself, is bad. This is not something that is based in any sort of real physics, as far as I understand it.
Yeah.
But it is an interesting thing to bring up. There is the Blinovich limitation effect, I believe it's called, in Doctor Who. And there is the 12 Monkeys, they call them paradoxes. That's the one thing they call a paradox, which is not a paradox in any sort of real sense. Still slightly bugs me, but whatever. Also, in 12 Monkeys, it causes an explosion, and only one of the objects will be left behind afterwards. Well, it's not like a fiery explosion. It's more like an energy explosion. You know, it releases a bunch of energy, and the object that just becomes one. In Doctor Who, I think it just screws with
Still
time.
does not make sense.
Like in the Eight Doctors, the novel, it briefly freezes time around the two Doctors when they meet, which never happens in other multi-Doctor stories. So I don't know what that is about. I guess Doctor Who is probably like the worst example when it comes to time travel rules, because the rules are whatever this story right now needs them to be.
Yep.
And you better not argue with it. Because you're not going to get any results.
That's right. Yeah, do you have anything else?
I think I've hit up on all the different versions that I wanted to. I don't know if we talked that much about like which is better or worse, but I guess it really isn't. It depends on the story you're trying to tell, so it's really hard to say. I guess I'll just say that the unchanging timeline doesn't really work that well for a show. Or even a movie series. Like anything ongoing. Saying like, oh, we can do time travel, but it doesn't change anything, it's not super helpful. I guess it can still be used for information gathering. Like, oh, I want to know what happened in the past, so we go there and I look it up. But like besides that, it's not that interesting. We also didn't talk about time cops. I think it was might have been a show called that, but just like the concept, right? Mm-hmm. Where like you can change the timeline, but there are literal cops that are trying to prevent you from doing that. Like the timeline isn't metaphysically unchangeable,
right?
But there are people in the further future that have decided that actually mucking with the timeline is bad, and so you shouldn't do it. I don't know if there's much to say, but that kind of is sort of the perfect combination of...
It's an interesting concept. I'm still not sure about like if that makes sense or not.
Well, I mean, there is definitely stories that use it, right? I think there is one that's actually called Time Cops, Time Police, or something like that, where they actually like you follow the characters that try to prevent the time from being altered. And then the Star Trek has it as well, although it's usually like not a main character type thing. Actually, that brings up an interesting question. I don't know if we want to talk about that right now, but the ethics of time travel. I think we talked about like the killing baby Hitler thing before as a topic, which was called the ethics of time travel. But just like changing the timeline in the first place, like without saying like, oh, you have to do like a bad thing that changes the timeline to hopefully a better one. But because a lot of fiction just takes the easy route and says changing the past is bad, don't do it. Because then you don't have to contend with all the implications of like, how would you change the past? Do you have an obligation to change it when you can? Right? Like, there's a lot of follow-up questions that happen if you do say changing the timeline is okay. But like,
right?
Isn't it though?
I guess it depends on like what kind of time travel mechanic is at play here. If it's like one timeline that actually changes for everyone. Or if it's just splitting off into like a new timeline. Because if it's just splitting off, then like I don't think it matters.
Yeah, I could see that.
The original people aren't really influenced at all. They still get to live whatever it was they were living.
At that point, the question is just like, what are the ethics of creating a whole new universe, right? Which like, I don't see a problem with it inherently. Like, unless you're intentionally making it worse.
I don't either.
Like, if you're intentionally creating a worse timeline, that I could see that being a bit iffy. But, creating additional timelines in general, I don't see a problem with. Unless, of course, there is, like... I mean, there are some universes where it's like, oh, actually, if there's too many timelines, they start colliding and stuff goes kaput. But, like... I mean, that's the Marvel version where, like, incursions happen and then, Secret Wars. But...
Yeah.
But yeah, that's like a very specific thing that has like absolutely no basis in any sort of even remotely real physics. So let's take that out of it, I suppose. Okay, yes, I agree. Creating timelines not necessarily bad. Again, unless you like actively like choose to like, oh, let's go to the past and release a deadly virus, and it's like, yeah, maybe that is just like bad because you should do that in the present either. I guess that's the thing, right? Like if you do something that would be bad to do in the present, that's probably bad to do in the past.
I guess. Although, I mean, as we kind of found out with the podcast with Alex when we talked about ethics and stuff, I'm not really following the whole ethics thing, apparently.
Yeah.
As one might expect.
They're different. I mean, there's...
I kind of have a hard time judging that.
Yeah, but I would say that, like, making something intentionally worse or doing bad things is not necessarily good. I mean, obviously, if it's a killing baby Hitler thing, it's a question of, like, is doing something bad that creates a better timeline, is that justifiable? It's a whole different kind of worms. What about changing the one singular changeable timeline? What are the ethics of that? Like, I guess, let's say...
There it becomes more interesting.
I mean,
That's for sure.
I guess making a negative change once again is like a pretty obvious no-no, but the question is more making a neutral change is a very interesting topic, and I think the most contentious is probably making a positive change.
Yeah.
And don't ask me all the ethics
Um,
questions of like who's the arbiter of what is positive and what is neutral. Like, let's keep that out and negative.
yeah, let's also keep out of the question if there even is anything like ethics in
Does
the
ethics
first
even exist?
place.
Yeah.
Yes. Um, that is a topic for when we do have Alex here to guide us through this.
Yeah.
But
I feel like we've also
man,
exhausted that topic pretty much. Like, we're not gonna get any further
oh,
with
we
it,
have
probably.
not. We have not. Not even close. Um,
All right. So the ethical implications of changing the timeline for neutral or positive effect. I think those might be two different cases, but sort of my argument for at least positive changes would be you making the world better, right? Like that should be worth something. The counter argument would be you taking away people's choices, right? Like because if you're essentially forcing the world to be different, then people's individual choices don't matter to the same degree that they did before. I mean, if free will never existed in the first place, then I guess the whole question of like can I even be judged for my actions comes up, which again we're getting to a very metaethicsy kind of debate there. But if we assume that free will exists, or at the very least seems to exist from like an individual perspective, then overriding other people's will with your own is always a bit dubious. At the same time, anything you do now is also going to have ripple effects in the future that are going to impact
exactly. Like
other
if you
choices.
do change it in the past, like from the people's perspective, they're still doing their own free will things,
Yeah,
just like with the new set of circumstances. And if time travel works the way that like it kinda like if it's minor differences that they only produce minor differences in the future, like that are potentially also just localized to like where where the change happened, and it's also like a much weaker argument
yeah,
too.
of course. I I find that question interesting because my intuitive answer is making the world better should be a good thing, right? Like and we can't really argue that like just because maybe some people make different choices because of that inherently invalidates it. Um, I guess it's kind of like the argument of again, right? Like while you're in the past is essentially your present, and so you're bound by a lot of the same moral constraints as you would in the present of like just
Mm-hmm.
doing good things. The only difference being that you essentially have knowledge of the future. I guess probably like
Yep.
the easiest way I can think of that, and then obviously the knowledge of the future can influence the moral weight of decisions because like doing something that might be morally neutral in a general sense um might then have a knock-on impact in the future. um like
Mm-hmm.
god I can't think of a great example right offhand of like a doing something like absolutely neutral that then has a positive impact in the future. Like I'm sure there are tons of stories where that happens, um but I guess you could sort of the Doctor episode Rosa, where they just take the bus. That's basically like the thing they do is take the bus. Now, I mean, I guess it's something, right? So have you seen the episode actually? It's a 13th Doctor story, so it's right around about where you probably have seen it. Um,
I don't remember, man.
so
I
the
probably not.
Montgomery bus boycotts, Rosa Parks. Okay, so you've heard of segregation, right?
Yes. Oh
Uh,
no, I've seen that story. Yeah.
and so famously Rosa Parks didn't give up her seat on the bus, which is one of like the big milestone moments that always gets talked about in civil rights history. Whether or not that one individual event actually had that much impact on the whole movement is obviously up for debate. But they had to take some of those seats so that she would be forced to give up her seat and then she could refuse. Because there were just not enough people on the bus because of, I think, something else that happened before. And so, I mean, obviously they are also fixing the timeline to what it's supposed to be, right? So that's the whole other thing there. But if we assume that Rosa Parks not giving up her seat is a good thing because of the civil rights movement, then you just sitting on that bus is an inherently neutral thing. But that forcing the chain of events that would lead to her not giving up the seat is a good thing. That's the only one I can think of right offhand. There are probably other ones, but most of the time when you talk about changing the past is often I was like, oh, we have to kill that guy. It's like, that's not a morally neutral act. That's a morally negative act, even if it is supposed to cause a positive effect down the line. That's inherently iffier. Like, I'm sure you can justify it. I mean, as a matter of fact, you can certainly justify it, but it's not as clean of an argument.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't have anything more to say.
Yeah, a funny side effect of what I just argued is that making neutral changes to the timeline is also a morally neutral thing to do, so you can just screw with the timeline as much as you want. As long as it's not making things worse. Right? It feels like a weird, but it kind of feels weird that that's the case, but at the same time, I think it's just because basically any time travel fiction you see tells you, like, changing the timeline is actually bad. Or it does the changing the timeline won't lead you to the results you want. That's also the other one, where they keep trying to change things for the better, and either it doesn't get better, or it's not good enough to them. Like, they try again and again, and it's like that whole thing about, like, you know, you can't force perfection. Like you can't keep trying for perfection. You'll never be done. The morals of time travel stories are actually kind of weird, but I guess we don't question it because we can't time travel anyway, so it doesn't really affect us.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess facts of the week.
Facts of the week. So, my fact is a pretty short one. It's about a guy that had trained his cat to dial 911 in case he couldn't do that himself because of circumstances. He did that for like around 3 years. Never expected it to work because, like, the cat just, I mean, cats are cats, right? But apparently it did, because when he was in trouble and couldn't get to any phone, didn't have his wristband thingy, dial 911, and also couldn't reach his, like, helpline thingies that he can also use. His cat did actually dial 911 and got him out of trouble, which is pretty surprising.
Yeah.
Happened in 2005.
That is kind of interesting. So, my mom actually got one of our cats to sit on command. The one thing is, just like with a dog, right?
Okay.
The one thing is, it only works if you have treats in your hands. Like, the cat knows, like, much like a dog, right? Like, you train it, like, oh yeah, if you do it, you get a treat, right? And so it learns to do that, like, to associate, like, you tell it to sit, you make the hand signal, right? Like, it associates it with, like, it getting a treat.
Mm-hmm.
But the cat knows exactly if you have a treat on you or not, so it only works if you actually have one. Which is not really the point, but it's hilarious to me. Like, yes, if the cat knows you have
Unfortunately,
treats,
the story does not. Yeah. Unfortunately, the story does not go into detail how the guy tried to train the cat to dial 911. That would have been really interesting.
I would assume Pavlovia, right, like the whole, like, this thing, like, you give a treat if it does it correctly. Conditioning, which I do then wonder, like, do you have a disconnected phone or something? Because I do wonder, like, if you actually,
right?
Like, how often did you call 911 just to be like, yeah, my cat did that. Like, don't worry about it. There's nothing wrong. But yeah, no,
So
that's definitely an interesting
yeah,
story.
the guy didn't even know that like he traded successfully up until like the cat actually did dial 911 in the accident. Um,
I mean, I think that that's the thing about the trainability of cats, right? It's not that the cats are too stupid; it's that they just don't want to, and they're actually too smart sometimes, right? Where like they just do whatever they want to.
yep.
Uh,
So yeah,
yeah, no,
I guess that might be something you could try to do if you wanted to.
uh, yeah. Um, my fact of the week is actually also quite simple, and that is that wearing a seatbelt makes you more likely to die from cancer.
Is it a case of correlation, not causation,
Well,
or
it
is
makes you
it
less
like
likely to die in a car
actually?
accident. So by process of elimination, you're more likely to die of any of all other causes.
I hate that.
No, but this
I hate
like
this. Why?
it's a true statement on a statistical level that really should make you think about some of the correlations that people purport. Like yes, technically, wearing a seatbelt makes you more likely to have cancer. That doesn't mean that seatbelts are cancerous, and you really have to be careful about how you analyze your
Mm,
data. This is more of a cautionary tale,
yep.
really, than an actual like specific fact, but it is technically factual, and this is my fact of the week. I mean, it's also another thing where I think I did double check it, but I think older people are actually more likely to have cancer than younger people. So by living longer, but also increasing life expectancy slightly by wearing a seatbelt, that also like furthermore like makes cancer in particular also like a higher risk compared to all of the other risks that are also technically higher because your risk of dying from a car accident is lower. So yeah, that is my
Right.
fact of the week.
Yep. That checks out, but I hate it.
Yeah, no, I know. I just like I just had to use it, you know. Like when I saw that, I think someone brought that up somewhere, like in an internet conversation, when something else was argued, I was like, oh, this, and then like yeah, and I was like, this is a fact, and you kind of just have to like let people know, you know, if you wear a seatbelt, you're more likely to die from cancer. That's very important information. um,
Rare.
yes, weekly Squirtle number 157. We're doing Squirtle. We once again start with our typical starting words that are tonic. Wait, it's laser first. It's laser,
I think later first. Yeah.
and then tonic. And last week, wait, stupid question. No, okay, that was last week. I was just about to say like I don't know about weeks, but yeah. Wait, when does
Yeah.
the
No,
weekly
we
score
recorded that
refresh?
last week. Ooh,
Because we recorded 6 days ago.
think.
I mean, it works. It did say tonic in the second column. Like we're fine. We're good. Like
Yep. That is a good question, actually. I don't know. Probably Monday.
you would think so,
Who
right?
knows?
But last week we recorded on a
Yeah.
Monday, and this week we're recording on a Sunday, which was kind of my point.
Oh yeah. Wait. Right. Huh.
Which means this is technically I just thought of it when we clicked it, but this is technically the second time we're recording this week.
Wait. I guess then it's from like Saturday to Sunday.
It might be.
Like as far as I
Wait.
know, Americans start the week on Sunday.
Yeah. Also, a random side note. I don't have a working clock within view, but it's not after midnight yet, is it?
No.
Not even
No,
close
it's
enough.
not.
Okay, cool. I probably should have a working clock inside at some point. I mean, I like my clock is
You
still
have
probably
like
wrong.
5 blocks in view right now, don't you?
Well, I mean, I have one that's like completely broken. I have one that has the wrong time, and I was pretty sure like that because it still runs mostly at the right rate. So like I was pretty sure that it wasn't midnight yet. I mean, I can technically see my phone, but A, I don't know if it has charge, and B, I definitely can't see the display, and C, it's not the display's not on. So it's technically, and I could use my computer clock, but then I would have to like put up the taskbar,
Mhm.
which I didn't want to do. What do we want to
Fair
guess for a word?
Right. So we don't have any C's.
No C's at all, and no N's in the next word, neither in the row nor column.
Right. So we actually hit like 3 letters in 3 spots.
Yes.
Huh. Other than that, we don't really have that many positive hints.
That
We
is true,
got
and we
the
have absolutely
N's.
no positive hints what we're currently trying to guess, except that I guess we could try E or L up there if we wanted to.
Yep.
Maybe L is the better of the two to guess because this word is probably not going to be like we could like the second letter here is probably not going to be one that could go after E, but it will be one that's going after L, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least more likely. That's like the only thing I can think of that we could really do. I'm guessing T in the first spot doesn't really help because obviously this is an S, so we already know that T isn't there. As a matter of fact, the T is a 50-50 down here already.
It sure is. So I think it's worth it to point out that we do have an A somewhere in the lower right 3x3,
Yes.
and we also do have an O somewhere in the grid.
Yes, but there's a couple of spots that I can go still.
Yeah.
I noticed the O as well. I didn't spot the A for some reason, which is much more useful. So if we start a word with L, we probably almost certainly will want a consonant next, a vowel next, and it can't be an A or an O.
Yep, I would propose that we either end the word with an A or have the A as a second to last one to like
Yes.
narrow it down almost completely.
I mean, either way, we would narrow it down completely, right? Because we would be blocking 4 rows and columns. Assuming it's wrong, I guess. Then,
Yeah.
if whether it's blocking the third row and column and the last or the second to last, I would put it either here or there. Again, if they're all wrong, which obviously, like completely like white hints. But,
Yeah.
okay, so what you're saying is we want a word that has an A towards the end, that maybe has an O towards the end or middle, that maybe I suggest it starts with an L, and then we also need a vowel, presumably in second place, which would I guess be a U. Lunar.
I
Oh
don't like
no,
the N.
no, the ends
The
were bad.
N's,
The ends were bad.
kind of rough, yeah.
Uh, Lu. I would have suggested luggage, and was way too long. um,
Yeah.
there is ludo as a prefix. But I don't know what to do with that. Also, we wanted an A, not an O necessarily, so that's not super helpful. I believe lupo is Latin for wolf.
I think so.
Again, not super helpful. Lupine would be the closest we could get to a usable word, and that's too long and also has no A's in it. Lucid doesn't have any A's though.
Also, C is, I guess, even
Oh, C's C's,
worse than N.
yeah, no, C's terrible. I didn't even notice that. I mean, we don't have to like necessarily do all the constraints. We don't necessarily have to start with an L, I guess. As a matter of fact, if we have the intersecting L hints, it would still be almost just as useful as hitting the L, I suppose. I guess putting L anywhere in the word is almost as useful as
the intersecting the intersecting what hints?
Well, if we had an L here and it said like it's up, then they wouldn't intersect here.
Yeah.
Similarly, if we say there's no L in this column, then it doesn't matter if it says it up here or if it says it down here somewhere. So I guess my point was that we don't need to start with an L. We just want to maybe have an L. As a matter of fact, we already know that we can't have one here anyway, so maybe it's better even to not have it in the beginning. In which case, that then really changes the calculation a bit, because then we could put something else. We don't have to put the U second. I mean, we might want to have a U, generally speaking. We don't have to necessarily put it second if we put like something like ST or something. I mean, obviously not actually T in second, that's terrible, but I was gonna say solar, but that O is terrible. Actually, the S is terrible as well.
Also S. Yeah.
I was gonna try to make pupa work somehow, but pupas as a plural, I don't even know if it's correct, and also the S is terrible. And is it pupae actually? That might work.
What is that?
It's I think it's a stage between a larva and a butterfly.
Oh, yeah, I am not familiar with the word for that.
That should be the word, I believe. And then technically, if we go with like Latin plurals, sometimes it would work like that, right? It's not even that good. It's probably not a word, and it's not even that good because of double P. Okay.
What fraud?
Well, it doesn't put the A where you wanted it.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
at least it narrows it down a bit.
It also doesn't have any L's, which I said might be useful, but also not necessarily super useful, so I'm not that attached to it. F and D are new. The R could give us more information on those. You know what? Sure. We don't want to get stuck forever on the third word. We got the A.
Amazing.
And now we have basically the inverse going on with the U's that we did with the A's earlier. Kind of, not quite.
Mm-hmm.
But we still have like two rows and columns, so they can't be. So they have to be in what is it? Oh god, it's one of those where it's like down here, one of those two, and then like this 2x2.
Yeah.
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 It's a bit scattered, but it is still pretty restricted. We're also about to get a diagonal.
About to get a bingo.
Okay, how many words do you know that start with SF?
SF.
Like SPH definitely exists, like sphere, but SF?
Didn't think of a single one.
Which makes it seem like the F in the central row is one of the last two. Sadly, I can't narrow it down that much further. Although, I'm tempted to say it's the final letter. But I can't, like, fully... Oh, we could actually make it... Oh, no, never mind. It can't be a T. I was going to say we could just make it easier, put both, and have it be staff. But no. Actually, what does go between an S and an A? Like, because it can't be T. It could be P, I suppose. It could be E.
Yeah.
W?
Be a K.
Skart.
Skate.
Skate. Well, yeah, I mean, there was no F in there, but yeah, I get the idea that it works in general. Yeah, there's not a lot of options.
Oh, yeah. An H.
Oh, yeah, shaft.
Yep.
I don't hate that. You know, I'm just gonna, like, you know, we don't have to take it too seriously, but I'm just gonna pencil it in. I mean, we do need a T after all. I mean, I guess it could just be the T in the first column, but... do we have anything else that, like, seems to be narrowed down? I guess the E is now down to 2 spots in this current column that we're trying to fill out. And obviously the T here is down to 1 of 2 as well. How do I feel about IFE now that I put it in there? I mean, the problem is, like...
doesn't seem too bad. Could be life, something.
Life? Yeah, I was going to say lives, but it's lives. That's the whole dwarf thing again. Remember from last week?
Yep.
Right, so wives doesn't work. Nor does lives. I was gonna say or hives, but hives is always like hive in a single is also spelled with a V, so that's not even it's not even the point to that argument. I wonder. Now I wonder if hive is like an incorrectly assumed singular from an Old English plural or some shit like that. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying like it could be. The problem is if you got like lived or something like that, it still has the same problem where the F becomes a V in a lot of forms.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't love it, which means that maybe the E is wrong, because the problem with the E is that you often have multiple E's in the grid. So the intersecting hints are not as powerful as with some other things.
That is true.
Which I guess means the argument then would be that it's like this, which doesn't necessarily make me that much more confident. That might be worse. Because we're probably not doing AE. That's like a very Latin thing that I said earlier. But like, so what do we do for like a consonant cluster there? Because I don't think F does consonant clusters really. I mean,
it could be double F.
But
yeah.
In a general sense, it could be. I can't come up with an example where it works. Like, with... I mean, with exists, but it's with an H and no E at the end, so like that doesn't work. Riff works, but that doesn't have an E at the end. I guess that's generally the problem, right? If you want to put an E at the end, putting a double consonant followed by an E is rough.
Yeah.
It does happen. I think with like N's and L's, it sometimes happens. or M, like the British spelling of program. But I don't think it happens with Fs. Which then takes us back to, I guess, if shaft is correct, which again doesn't have to be.
Very dubious. I mean, we can already kind of narrow it down that the E does not go where the F is currently, because S blank AE blank is kind of rough.
Yeah, no, it is more likely to be EA than AE. That is correct.
When the IE in the column would kind of work, that is fine. But the AE in the row,
that is rough.
That's where the issue would be.
So, I mean, it would be kind of useful if, as you said, like some variety of life would work, because obviously we could actually use an L there.
I'm currently trying to maybe rethink shaft a bit.
I was trying as well
to have something else.
My main problem was that, like, what do you put after an A, and then put an F after that? Because that's basically the question, right? Assuming that SF is indeed incorrect. Like,
right?
It doesn't matter if the H is right? What matters is like A something F. It's like AUF maybe, but that seems weird, because if it's like almost like anytime I say like off, I want to go AUVE, not AUF.
Yeah, I mean, I was really trying to make like my brain always goes to ARF, but that
no
obviously
Rs.
doesn't work because we can. Yeah,
that's also where my brain went. Also, that's more of a German thing, I feel like, than an English one. But I mean, there's barf, I guess.
Scarf was a thing.
Scarf in the singular, yeah, no, scarves, right? No, okay, so yeah, no, there are some arfs in English as well. Okay, but like again, that doesn't work. So no. I mean, technically, like AIF would work just fine, but double I seems very suspect. Yeah, see, that's the problem.
Ooh, yeah.
KF? That seems dubious. ACF? No. L.
Mm. Oh. Yep.
And I guess technically N as well, maybe? Or maybe it's a German thing again. N, and if N works, maybe M as well. Anf. Amf. Okay, maybe N better than M. Like maybe.
Yeah,
N
although redundant
like
because we kind of have an N there.
Oh right, okay, that's good. Because again, M feels like even more of a stretch. So L is the only other one that works probably. And then we just have to figure out like shelf, swelf, spalf, scalf, shelf, I already said that. Scalf, slalf, self, svalf, spalf, snalf, smalf. I don't think so. And again,
Yeah,
L is the only one I can come up with that even sounds right. So I'm starting to get more attached to the F being there. even if it does make problems. So wait, you last week you went through a whole litany of actually dwarfs used to be like just like with the S at the end. Like, do you? Oh no, wait. That actually dwarf doesn't have an E though. Life,
That is
wife,
correct.
all of those do have E's. Do you have an example that works of like FES? Because it doesn't have to be FES. It could be FED as well. Like
I don't think so.
Because I can't think of anything that would work, right? Like, jive is spelled with a V. Life again. I can't find a variant that works. Lifer.
I guess. I don't know.
Like someone who's in prison for life. He's a lifer. Or not even just prison.
Yeah.
It's also used as a metaphor sometimes. Like he's just in for the long haul. Because it's the only. Life is the only one that I can think of that might have any sort of additional endings. So, like, I think we could just try if lifer is in the dictionary. It probably is. And see what that gives us.
Sure, let's go for that.
It was also correct, so that...
Okay.
Um,
okay, great.
I'm gonna go with that might have just been the only possible answer here with our constraints. At least with the F where we placed it. In which case, it's pretty hard to find it if it's just the sole answer.
Yep.
I'm a lot more confident in Shaft now, although it could still be something else. But the more letters we have, the more confident I am. I guess the downside of doing this is that it gave us very little information otherwise.
Sure did.
Like, I guess the other word we now have the R as well. That's new. So we have a similarly shaped word here, but it has 3 letters in common, that we still need to find, but also there's no hints. Except for some negative ones. Like, we already have the E.
Yeah. We do have an indirect one with a T in the column.
Right, yes, that is true. So you're saying it's tiger?
I'm saying it could be.
Saying it could be tiger. I mean, AG is actually, like, super common. Like, stage. I mean, not literally, of course. Like, ST. At least the E would be allowed. AGE actually would be a very common way of ending that, of course.
I just want to point out that timer would also be a thing.
And AME works just as well. Yeah, like as in lame. Dame. I swear there's probably one that has 5 letters as well somewhere.
Yeah.
Blame. Technically, there's nothing preventing us from actually being blame.
I guess. Wait, how's tight spelled? As in like the
TIGHT?
No, I mean the different tight. I think it's TITHE.
Like, isn't hither and hither?
No, as in like the tax you pay, but like as in
tithe. It's a religious thing, yeah, like tithe. Yeah, no, it's TH, yeah.
Okay. All right, that would not work there.
No. It's not titter. No. Um, or tighter, if you will. Which, uh, no, I think it is probably timer or tiger. I mean, I'm not super.
Yeah, probably.
I'm not super invested in finding more options. um, I mean, tipper would be double P. I'm assuming, like someone who tips. Like a
Yeah.
tip, as in, like leaving a tip is just TIP. I think a tipper, the person who does it, and tipping, I think are double P. And a typer is a Y, of course.
Yeah.
Tyler is a name, but that's also usually spelled with a Y, and also it's a name. Also no L's. So yes, I think Tiger and Timer are probably the best. Maybe Timer slightly better. Again, Blame works. But that's like absolutely nothing. I mean, I am somewhat confident in the E down there, actually. Just because of like AM would generally be followed by an E, I think.
I think so, yeah.
I mean,
sense.
or maybe another M. I can't think of an example right now, but also ER works perfectly fine. So but yeah, whether it's blame or something else. Not that I could think of something else, but theoretically.
Right.
Can you think of anything else?
Sorry, what?
Can you think of anything else?
About what?
Instead of blame.
Oh,
Because I can't. And the longer it takes me to think of something else, the more I'm always tempted to just put it in. Which, as you well know, never goes wrong. So it's an ironclad strategy.
yeah.
Wait, how do you... Chaff is spelled with a C, right? I'm totally unrelated. I was thinking about the alternatives for shaft, but chaff as in the stuff that you don't... that doesn't become grain, right? Like that is C, right?
I don't know this. Yeah, I don't know the spelling of that, but I would assume so.
Because I'm also struggling to figure out, like, we need a letter here that can go both with LI, and even if it's not L, then at least can go after an I, that can also go before TR, which actually doesn't seem that easy. Because it could be E. I guess it could be E. Like as in lie. Like the word, I guess the word could be belie. I don't know why I'm throwing around so many B's. Feels a little suspect. Oh yeah, and it could be something like... Okay, no, that doesn't work. There's an obvious problem with what I just did here, and I'll see if you spot it.
BLM?
BLM, yeah, it's like, how to make that work?
Yeah.
Oh, I guess this word doesn't need an E, right? So it would probably be an E there. But then this can't be an E. And I mean, this doesn't have to be an O either, but...
I do like the O thing, though. I wanted to say that earlier as well, that we should probably guess an O somewhere in this word. Since we do still have this one O hint that there's one O somewhere in the grid.
Okay.
And we have no clue where.
Okay, how do we make this work, though? Like, that feels suspect.
Hmm. I don't think we do.
Yeah, and now the question is, right, where is the problem? Is it with the E, which I just kind of put there, but I kind of also like it there, because if the B is right, we kind of need a vowel there, probably, and we need an E in the row anyways? Or is shaft wrong? And what if shaft is wrong? Because what would it have to be? Would it have to be a vowel there again? Like, chafe, again, is probably also a C. And then we go into the AFE situation again, which is, again, tricky. Like, spafe, chafe. Again, shave is a word with a V, but swathe, swath. That's TH. Swathe can't be stave. Not that it would sound reasonable, anyways. Spave, smave. It doesn't really work either, does it?
Wait, how's a liege spelled? Leage?
Wait, what do you say? I thought it said liege.
Yeah, I'm not too sure how to pronounce that. The person you're serving or something.
Yeah, liege. Liege. I would have said.
I
don't even know where you want to use that right now, if I'm being honest.
I was thinking Leage for the central column. As like that might work. Although I'm not too sure.
Oh.
Thinking of spelling words kinda is confusing.
Right, so we were saying maybe it is Tiger after all. And then we go,
yeah.
What does this say? And
I was trying to find an option for that.
Right, if the L is wrong, then that opens up it a little bit. And that also then means the E there isn't as required. And then you want to, I mean, ultimately the E would then go there, right? But,
I mean, that would be the L again.
Oh, right, it's the L again. I mean, etage.
I mean, that works as well, I guess.
I don't think, I'm not sure if it works in English. It's German, it's French. I don't know if it works in English.
I'm not sure either.
Okay, so you wanted an L there, though, because we kind of want that. It doesn't strictly speaking have to be there, but it would be convenient if it was.
Yeah, I mean, I only wanted the L there because, like, I thought I had something valid for the column.
We don't actually need an L there at all because we already have an L, so it isn't even.
Yeah, of course.
Right, besides stage isn't possible. Phage. Is it? Can you just say phage?
Probably in like a scientific context.
Yeah, because you do have like a necrophage or something like phage as like a with a prefix definitely works. I just don't know if phage as a standalone works. Like as just
probably
eater. It doesn't make it any better. I feel like it still puts the E there.
Yeah.
And that then gets us into the same problem as before, where if we have a vowel here, it gets pretty tricky.
I mean, we don't have to actually have the O there in the last spot. It's just like I wanted us to guess an O
Yeah, no, I get
to have the
that,
hints.
but I feel like it had to be O, probably not E or Y, right? So it's one of those where that doesn't make it better though, right? Like if we put an E here, it's
Wait, why
still
no E?
why not E? Because TRE seems. I guess maybe some British spellings that are inherited from French, but it doesn't seem very. Certainly doesn't seem very American
Yeah.
to have a TRE. Which it does, again, it doesn't have to be that. I think there are some British spellings in here. I can't think of
I mean,
any.
Y could work.
That's what I was saying, right? It basically has
Entry.
to be Y or O, probably, anyways.
Yeah, entry
Entry.
for the
Oh!
column.
Do you want to just try that?
Maybe if you want to, sure.
I mean, we do need an N in that row, anyways. I wouldn't have put it there, but, like, you know. Um.
Oh well.
So now we really want an O there, huh?
Yes.
And so this isn't an H. Wait, this isn't an H either, then, is it? Is it? This is an N, which it doesn't have to be, but I mean, what there and there?
Oh no, there. Like not with a P. That column literally cannot have an N.
Right, wait, what was I trying to say? Oh, right, wait, so this row needs to have so it would be there, sorry, there and there is what I meant to say.
Yeah. Mm.
I mean, I like the N there, but then the H is probably wrong. Unless it's something weird, like unhid. It sounds just about plausible as a word.
Yeah.
Unhip. As in not hip. Although he unhid it as in like uncovered or revealed. That is actually like not bad. Unhit.
No, but what
That's
would
worse.
be
It is not allowed.
okay, but what if the N was like in the first spot? Or both row and column?
It would have to be for both because in this column, in
Yeah.
both columns, it's a 50-50 because the eyes taken, the other two can't be. Like it would have to be in first,
Yep.
both.
Man, I just thought of Anstey.
You mean
Actually,
antsy?
I think it's Anstey. Yeah. I just realized, man, that something's wrong there.
Well, it's antsy and it's ansty,
Uh,
but just
yeah.
just ansty does not work. Yeah, and the problem here is like, what do we do here? And the only word that came to mind was angle, but obviously no A's. Because what do we put here? I mean, I guess we could put a vowel here.
Yeah.
On Yule. Uniel. I don't know. Like none of those sound right.
Yeah, no, I do like the N in second position better.
Yeah, and
This
then
is
again,
rough.
the H is a little rough.
Hmm.
Although I guess anything that we could put here would be. Because, what is it? If it's swaft, then that's not much better. There might be a word, though, swaft.
Yep.
I think it is. Like a... Just like a hint of the smell? Like you're getting a swaft of it? Or is it swaff?
Yep. I don't know. I think it's with a T. But man, my spelling is kind of off right now.
Yeah, and the longer we do this, the harder it gets.
Yeah.
We also have very few positive hints that we haven't used. Okay, wait. So, surely we can figure out the last column, though. Eatery would have an extra... right? Wait, no Y's at all. Right, so this basically has to almost be an O. That's weird. Maybe it could be an E somehow. Maybe it could be an A. Or a U? Maybe not a U. Maybe an A would actually work. Extra. That is very spicy. I'm getting spicy. I'm starting to put X's in the grid.
Spicy.
Ooh.
That is quite something.
Which also then would mean that the O only can be here, there, or here. And if it's here, I actually have another very spicy guess. This word could be gusto. And this basically says Unix. I know we need an extra letter there.
Unmix.
That's the kind of shitty word that I would come up with. I'm not saying it's wrong.
Yeah, no, I just also, like, for the column, I was thinking of, like, all kind of variants on, like, mage and page and stuff. So, it might work, maybe.
Mage. Image.
Fucking hell! Of course!
Guile. And what did I say? Unhip? An opera? I hate this because it works! Like, there are so many suspect words in here. Unmix.
Oh, God.
And unhip?
What the hell?
There's no way this is right.
Surely not.
But I kind of want it to be.
Oh, man.
It was gusto. I'm doing it with style, or, you know, as others would say with gusto. Unhip is the most suspect thing that we said, and it's also correct.
Yep.
I mean, image is just a word. Motherfucker.
Dude, that was tough. That was quite something.
I mean, we did a thing. No one can say we didn't do a thing. So our words were guile, unmix, shaft, tiger, opera, gusto, unhip, image, lifer, and extra.
Dude.
The unwords I'm just like most dubious of. Like the other ones are actually perfectly fine. But like the unwords are rough. Also, we did manage to have an X in the grid. Which, sure. But like, huh?
Oh.
Our second topic is, would you rather... Well, we're answering would you rather questions. Would you rather always overspice your food or always have your food taste bland?
So, with the overspicing, so as you get used to the spice level, you're still, like, adding more to, like, always make it overspiced for you?
That is an interesting
Or how
question.
does it work?
I mean, I feel like the correct answer is bland though, because like if you cook for other people, like they could just like season their food, you know, like after you're done with it. But like if it's too spicy, then like you can never basically cook for other people because they're always gonna be like, "What the fuck? You're just terrible at this." You know? Don't know what to think about yourself, Sergej.
I thought of spice as in like it being spicy.
As in hot, yeah.
No, yeah, as in hot, not necessarily just regular spices.
Yes, but I mean, bland is definitely like that is not just hot, right? Like that is all of it.
Yes. Yeah.
Also, what is your food
That
name,
is
right? Because
true.
I just went the like food you make route, but you could also make the food you eat route, which I guess is how this maybe was intended.
Oh, that's worse. That's worse. Ah.
Because over spice your food kind of sounds like you're actively doing something to the food, which then makes me think of making it. But I guess your food is what you eat. I genuinely don't know. I feel like the safe option is always to pick bland, though. Like, there's nothing wrong with bland.
I
Like,
think
it's
so too.
I don't like it, but like, it's perfectly harmless. Like, over spice, like, I mean, let's go for blood vessels. I think
I'm leaning towards bland. I want to pick spice still,
yeah.
but man, that's gonna be
With
tough.
these kinds of questions, bland is usually always a safer pick. It feels like. Like I ate spicy food, like a lot of spicy food for a while. Like it's like you like actually like it started growing it after a while. Like you like it's straight up like I would eat like somewhat spicy food and I was like, this is literally not spicy at all. Like you just it's not even that it didn't seem very spicy, it just like you didn't notice it anymore.
Yep. It do be like that.
Which also, by the way, is good though, because honestly spicy is like one of the worst tastes. Like I don't dislike it in eating it, like, but it overpowers a lot of the like finer, more subtle tastes that are in food. And oftentimes, if you have like a spicy version of a food, especially like if it's when it isn't intended, like sometimes you have like those sausages with like spicing in them or something, and it's like now this just tastes hot. Like before, it used to taste like sausage. It's like I don't want all my things to taste the same.
Like that is true. I do like a little bit of spice.
Yes.
So that like it adds just like little extra, but I do not like it overpowering it.
Yeah, but again, this is something that I'm not saying it categorically is always the case, but again, especially if it's too spicy, like it can happen very easily where it's just like, oh, this is just hot.
Yes.
Like it doesn't taste like anything in particular. It's like, okay, great.
Yeah, I guess you convinced me. Let's go with bland.
I mean, obviously, bland also doesn't exactly mean that you get all the subtleties. Oh yeah, right. 70-30. Live during the Renaissance or live during the Industrial Revolution? I think I know what the answer is, at least for me. But I want to hear yours.
I think I'll pick the Renaissance.
Yes. I mean, you have to assume that you're not at the top, right? I mean, if you're at the top, then like most libraries are fine.
Yes.
Right. So the Renaissance is obviously before the Industrial Revolution, and so like obviously like pre-industrial life is not necessarily that great, but the Industrial Revolution is just when life started getting really shit and work conditions were terrible, and it took a while after that to like really get into like a livable standard for regular people. And so the Industrial Revolution is like one of the worst times to be a regular person.
I think so as well. Yep.
That and like the many times that we had the plague, but 54-46.
46 people. Damn.
Would you rather
46% of people.
Would you rather have nothing in your life or nobody in your life?
Nothing.
Yeah, I guess that's fine. That's fair, yeah. And let's do one more after this, I guess. 63-37. And let's do the one more. Would you rather be a famous director or a famous actor? I feel like we've had, not you and I, but I think I've had this before with Smokey, I want to say.
Probably, but for me, director.
Yeah, for me too. And that is 33-67.
I don't necessarily like the spotlight being on myself.
Yeah, it's one of those where I don't need to be in front of the camera. I know it's an ironic thing to say for something that's in front of the camera right now. I mean, it's also the thing, right? Like, I feel like a lot of actors want to be directors as well, so it's not even like that weird of a thing to pick. But yeah, I mean, I think I've said this before, but if anything in a like film production or TV production, the position I would see myself most in is actually writer, not director. But also those oftentimes do coincide. But yeah, I would write the screenplay, I think, first and foremost. I mean, realistically, the most likely position I would see myself in is like a runner or something. But like, you know, like if I would want to be on a movie or like where I think I would be like a little more like skilled towards, although writing has never been my strong suit, despite the fact that I kind of want to be able to be better at that. Anyways, doesn't matter. What is your song of the week?
Right. It's Object by Hiss and Wing.
See, I would have said it's called Objet, but
Probably.
I mean, immediately when he said it out loud, I was like, "Wait, is he trying to say objet?" Which is it is French for object, right? Like fair, but like I mean, I was like, "Huh," and then I saw it written. I was like, "Yep, nope, that is what he was going for, yeah."
Makes sense now. Yep. So yeah, it's purely beatboxing. No instruments at all.
Yeah. I figured, because if there were vocals, you probably would have included them in the clip. Do I have to tell you that I don't like it?
Fair enough. Yeah, I do find it really impressive, though.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's very rare that I like songs without vocals in the first place, and also this also just musically in general is not mine. So even if someone was singing over it, I might still not like it very much. But yeah, this is like doing all the worst things basically for me. It's overstating it, but like it's doing a lot wrong for me to like it. Anything else you want to say about it?
That's fair. Not really.
Well, then my song of the week is Paranoid by Black Sabbath. In case it was any
Great song,
different
amazing cover image.
Yeah, that's just the album cover for Paranoid.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously, as I said, right, like there are vocals and the music is quite different from yours. That is not entirely a coincidence. I mean, obviously, I didn't pick it off of yours, but the contrast is unsurprising given my taste. I mean, that's an oldie but a goodie, right? There's not a lot to be said about this. I have got away from saying I like metal as like an overall thing. But I like certain types of metal and like older heavy metal and newer power metal and that stuff definitely falls under that. And I mean, I think this like Collins metal might even be a bit borderline, although it does have the guitars that are like very typical of metal. But this is like early metal, and so of course I like it. Well, I say of course, but you know,
I do like it as well. Pretty good song.
That's good. And if you like this episode of the Trash Talk Podcast, then subscribe. Then leave a link. And if you want to see more like this, then subscribe if you haven't already. And if you have something to say, leave a comment below. Sergej.
That's it.
That's it.